In 1945, Japan's hold on the Pacific during the war is hanging by a thread. Every day, more and more battles are lost and hundreds of soldiers keep dying. During a serious discussion of the situation, Commander Ishii of Unit 731 shows his water filter to his superiors. He pees in it in front of everyone, then he puts the filter on the table to reveal clean water made from his urine. To everyone's shock, he even drinks it. Ishii thinks they must ignore the Geneva Convention and use biological warfare like plague-infested fleas and rats to win the war. In February, Ishii's idea is approved under the name Operation Cherry Blossoms at Night. Unit 731 abandons all other projects and only produces plague-infected animals plus their antibodies. In China, Wang introduces himself to a group of foreign traders as the infamous man who escaped from prison. He shows them Ishii's water filter and asks them to replicate it since people are desperate for clean water because of the plague. When a man asks if the filter really works, Wang pees in it and fills a cup with the resulting water. Before he can taste it, Japanese soldiers burst into the room. Wang throws the water at them and tries to escape through the window, but a soldier knocks him out. Moments later, Wang wakes up in a train full of prisoners with a bag over his head. In the most important cart, Ishii and his daughters are being entertained by a magician named Sun. Soldiers Ikitsawa and Yoshikawa secretly take pictures of the trick. When the train reaches the station, the prisoners are unloaded and taken to a camp, where they're forced to listen to a speech about Japan's supremacy. When Baksuin desperately tries to reunite with his wife Suxian, the soldiers immediately knock him down. Wang notices that an old guy has lots of money and takes a few bills, saying he has contacts who can save them. The old guy puts the rest of the money in interpreter Sergei's boot, explaining that he and his family are just performers. However, the soldiers still separate them and send them away in different groups, men on one side, women on the other side. The men enter a corridor and Wang gives Baksuin the money, saying that's the only thing that can get him his wife back. Everyone is forced to take off their clothes and enter a bathhouse, where they're hosed so hard that they fall into the pool. The money ends up floating in the water. At that moment, the guys hear screams and gunfire. Suddenly a bunch of Soviet prisoners burst into the bathhouse and close the door. A guy stays behind to barricade it while the others try to escape through the back door, but it's locked. Then the Soviets take off their clothes and get in the pool. They also share their names, asking the Chinese to remember their last act of deficiency. Unfortunately, the Japanese troops burst in too and Imamura shoots the guy at the door. Then she threatens the other Soviets, but Sergei translates it differently to warn his countrymen. Imamura senses he's changing things and kicks him down. Wang interrupts her to translate what Sergei said, revealing he can speak multiple languages. Imamura steps back when someone rises in the pool. Ishii has been there all along and now gives Imamura her next mission before leaving the room. Afterward, the prisoners are taken to their cells. Baksuin, Wang, and Sun end up in a cell with Kunshan, who has drawn crosses on the wall and has a rat. Wang tries to befriend him, but Kunshan ignores him. Then he moves his pillow to reveal a hole, through which the rat runs to reach the women's cell. There, a young girl takes the rat's bow and adds it to her collection on the wall. The next morning, the prisoners are given food through a small window and told that they can leave when they're cured. Wang remembers what the Soviets did and shares his name, wanting to keep a sense of self. Baksuin does the same and shares that Suxian is a doctor and pregnant. Sun also introduces himself and points out that if the Japanese wanted to kill them, they would have already done so instead of feeding them. At that moment, two guards come to take Wang away. He jumps on one of them to start choking him, causing Baksuin to pee his pants in fear. The second guard hits Wang in the head to knock him out. When Wang wakes up, he's strapped to an electric chair. There's another prisoner who has been there for longer and keeps getting tortured with electric shocks. Imamura explains that this happens to those who don't obey and stares at her collection of torture tools before grabbing a burning fire poker. She brings it close to his face, but he stops it with his foot. Afterward, Imamura takes Wang to the screening room, where she explains she only cares about his language skills. Wang is allowed to smoke a cigar as a video of Sergei leaving the camp with his family plays on the big screen. Imamura announces that Wang is now Sergei's replacement. The next morning, Wang starts his new duties. He must walk down the corridors and deliver the meals to the other prisoners while repeating Japan's promise to let them leave if they get cured. Different sections of the prison have people from different countries, so Wang must change languages accordingly. His routine is interrupted when a beautiful woman with some priests enters the corridor. They play music as part of a ceremony that Imamura uses to tell certain prisoners that they're free to go. When a Soviet man tries to take an apple from the cart, Wang stops him, and the man tells him his Russian was awful. Outside, the troops train by poking straw targets. Imamura approaches Yoshikawa and Ikitsawa to give them the marbles from Sun's trick. When a boss sees them with an apple, he immediately takes it away and calls all the troops to remind them that the apples mustn't be eaten because they're full of bacteria. Yoshikawa and Ikitsawa keep chatting, so the boss slaps them to shut them up. Sometime later, while Wang is cleaning a corridor, he sees a bunch of scientists arrive. They take blood samples from all the prisoners and give them apples in return. The whole process is recorded. The samples are then hung on the lab ceiling. When Wang continues his deliveries, some prisoners call him a traitor. The next time he sees the ceremonial group guide the cured prisoners out, Wang begs Imamura to let him go too. Imamura says he can only leave when they get him a replacement. One afternoon after a soldier leaves, the door isn't closed properly, so Wang takes the chance to leave the cell area. He finds a room with a filming set where the Japanese soldiers are recording more propaganda. While Wang keeps looking around, Yoshikawa and Ikezawa decide to play a movie on the big screen. The video reveals that Sergei and his family were locked in a gas chamber and killed slowly. As he hears the Japanese laughing, Wang realizes he'll never be free. In the bathroom, he puts on Sergei's boots and finds the old man's cash. He decides to hide it in a book, but when he opens it, he finds Kunshan's marks, which match the ones on the wall. It's a map of the compound, located in the middle of nowhere. Later the prisoners are taken to the screening room and given Japanese flags. Wang tries to ask Kunshan about the book, but Kunshan changes seats to ignore him. The soldiers play a propaganda film that talks about how great Japan is, so a prisoner stands up and repeats the chant from the film while waving the flags. Wang realizes this guy wants to be on their captor's good side, so he starts doing the same. Soon all the prisoners join them, and a man uses the chaos to hit Wang several times for being a traitor. In May, the United States bombs Tokyo, and Ishii receives orders to accelerate his plan. Dozens of prisoners are infected with the plague, and the lab continues producing rats and fleas, which are sent out in crates. One afternoon Wang's head is covered with a bag and a soldier spins him around to disorient him before pushing him down a corridor. They take the elevator to the lower floor and Wang tries to see any clues about the location through the bag's thin fabric. Eventually they make it to the yard, where a new group of prisoners is waiting. Wang translates the instructions to send them to their respective bathrooms. Sometime later, Wang waits until he's alone in the corridor and starts spinning. He's memorized the number of spins and the direction the soldier took him to, which allows him to find the elevator again. A soldier almost catches him red-handed, but Wang pretends to be cleaning. He carefully moves to clean the elevator too, and once the soldier is distracted, Wang closes the door and goes down. On the lower floor, a bunch of scientists enter the elevator and unfortunately make it go up again. Wang pretends to be cleaning and tries to leave with his cart, but Imamura is waiting for him. Wang is taken to the torture chamber, where a woman is getting the skin of her arms flayed. When Wang tries to close his eyes, a soldier keeps them open to force him to watch. Next, they freeze a man's arms and destroy them with a hammer. Other prisoners are tied to crosses inside the freezing cell. A soldier records everything while another makes drawings to document the whole research. Imamura tells Wang that he wasn't supposed to see this, but he's betrayed her trust. If he does it again, he'll become a test subject too. Later in the cell, a guard informs Sun that he's free. A very upset Wang gives Sun some apples and watches him leave with the other prisoners, staying silent because he knows they'll die. However, when the prisoners are about to cross the front door, Ikezawa and Yoshikawa agree that they want Sun to stay and teach them his trick. Sun is soon sent back to his cell and Wang smiles for the first time since they arrived. However, his mood drops again when he notices that the soldiers replace Sun with the old man. One afternoon the prisoners are taken outside for exercise and a Soviet girl begins to sing an anti-fascist song. When someone kicks a ball too high, a hidden gun immediately shoots it down, and everyone falls on their knees in fear. Wang accidentally drops the book but quickly hides it in his clothes again. Kunshan notices this and finally admits he's planning an escape. He shares the details so they can work together. That night Wang pretends to read the book and laughs pretty hard at every page. Ikezawa soon arrives to confiscate the book, but when he turns the pages, he discovers Kunshan's hidden map. Suddenly Wang hits him with the water filter and proceeds to choke him to death. Then Wang takes Ikezawa's hazmat suit and hides the body in a stretcher, which he takes to the elevator. Yoshikawa is there waiting, but he doesn't suspect a thing and sends him to the crematorium. While keeping Kunshan's map in mind, Wang follows other soldiers with stretchers until he finds a room with hundreds of bodies in piles. A guy is in charge of chopping them while the others throw them into the fires. When Wang drops Ikezawa on the pile, he's startled by a survivor grabbing his leg. The guy warns him that leaving through this door is dangerous because it's full of guns outside, so Wang decides to go back to his cell and destroy the hazmat suit to throw it in the toilet. Meanwhile Kunshan sends the rat to the women's cell. At that moment Suxian wakes up and is shocked to find Imamura sleeping next to her. After Imamura leaves, Suxian tells the rat not to look for the girl because she was taken. The rat returns to Kunshan, who notices that the bow is still on and realizes what it means. At that moment, Ikezawa's disappearance is finally noticed and the alarm starts wailing. Kunshan doesn't want Sun to be tortured, so he covers the boy's face with a pillow and tries to smother him for a quicker death. However, Baksuan interrupts him when he starts begging for his life. Soon all the prisoners are lined against the corridor walls while the soldiers search the rooms. Each prisoner is called by his number, but Kunshan yells that he wants to be called by his name. Imamura immediately begins to beat him up, yet Kunshan keeps talking about his identity. A furious Imamura decides to kill him with her sword. The prisoners freak out, however the soldiers stop them from rioting. The body is dragged away, leaving a blood trail on the floor. Wang manages to close Kunshan's eyes as a final goodbye. The next day Wang has to clean all the blood while watching the ceremonial group leave with more prisoners. Sun begs Wang to keep working on the plan, so Wang thinks about what he's learned. He overheard soldiers talk about a Japanese holiday on July 2nd, which would be the perfect day to escape. As days pass, more and more prisoners get sick with the plague. In the lab, a desperate man wants to save his wife and a soldier stops him, so the man bites him. Another soldier quickly grabs a sword and chops the arm off to stop the illness from spreading. When new prisoners arrive, Wang tries to learn the date, but they give him different answers. Then Imamura surprises him by asking him to clean the classroom where Ishii's daughters are brainwashed every day. In the evenings, Sun and Boxuan use toilet paper to write messages that they send to other prisoners on Kunshan's rat, informing them of the escape plan. Boxuan also chooses a name for his baby, so Wang sends it to Suxian by carving it on an apple. Sometime later, a sick woman is brought to Suxian's cell. She and her cellmates immediately tear off their sleeves to cover their mouths. When Wang walks by, she asks him for a few ingredients to make a remedy. In the corridor, a plane made from money falls on the ground and Yoshikawa rushes to grab it. However, Wang steps on his hand and brings him to the cell, where Sun throws the money around to keep Yoshikawa in a trance. Wang takes his key and enters the storage room to steal everything Suxian needs, but he can't find sulfur. Suddenly a wall moves and Ishii's daughters come out as they chase their rat. The girls tell Wang that if he helps them catch their pet, they won't tell their father he was there. Wang moves fast and manages to catch the rat, so in return the girls tell him that sulfur is in bullets. In the cell, Sun gives Yoshikawa all the money and he snaps him out of his trance. Wang gives him back the key before Yoshikawa runs away with all the money. At the same time, Suxian burns the sulfur from the bullets to create a fog, then she mixes the other ingredients. After she gives the medicine to the infected woman, her cellmates throw the sulfur in the air and set it on fire to simulate fireworks. As she sees all this from a window and scolds his team because an average Chinese woman was able to fight the plague faster than them. 3 days before the escape date, Wang is taken outside where she is making prisoners play tug of war. Losers will be allowed to leave, meaning they'll get killed. Boxuan and Sun must compete against each other, and Boxuan easily overpowers the boy. However, he only wants him close to tell him that he hid a key in the rat's hole. Then he lets go of the rope, giving up. On his way out with the other losers, Boxuan asks Wang to take his wife during the escape. Afterward, Ishii helps the girls bury their dead rat. The next day, Wang is taken outside again to receive the new prisoners. However, a scientist complains because most of them are sick so they aren't useful for the experiments. The following day, a few prisoners are put inside a special cell with a bunch of rats, which immediately go crazy. Seconds later, the scientists inform Ishii that they've finally developed a virus with a negative rate that exceeds 90% and the corresponding vaccine. On the day of the escape, most of the Japanese leave the compound to celebrate the Yamakasa festival in town. In the corridor, Wang drops some apples on purpose as a distraction. When a suspicious guard confronts him, Wang presses his face against his chest to suffocate him. A second guard sees him and yells for help, so Wang smashes his head on the door to knock him out. When a third guard appears on the stairs, Wang rushes to make him trip and the guy dies when he breaks his neck. Afterward, Wang visits every cell and leaves apples with carved words. Sun finds the key in the rat hole and escapes from his cell to open all the others. Soon all the prisoners are coming out including Suxian, who finds a pair of baby shoes that Boxuan made with toilet paper. 2 more guards arrive but when they see the huge number of prisoners in the corridors, they immediately run away. The prisoners encounter other guards on their way out, but they fight them and bring them down, stomping on them as they keep running. Other soldiers arrive with hoses and spray them with freezing water, but they're quickly brought down as well. The group then takes the elevator to the main floor and as they run, Wang remembers the warning from the guy in the incinerator and imagines his friends getting killed. This distraction causes him to forget the way. Wang decides to split the group. Sun will lead the group down one path, while he and Suxian take the other. In the next hallway, Wang and Suxia see all the people being tortured in different rooms. Some prisoners are frozen or burned to death, others get acid on their arms, a man is getting his organs ripped, and another one lost their face and is now being chopped. Wang puts on a hazmat suit and sneaks Suxia into the incinerator by hiding her in a cart. However, she climbs out when she sees Boxuan on the pile of bodies. She tries to approach him but Boxuan dies after seeing her. Then Wang drags Suxia's hand and drags her to the door, only to find Ishii and his men waiting on the other side. Afterward, Suxia is taken to a lab filled with fetuses in capsules. Wang is forced to watch as the scientists cut Suxia's belly to get her baby too. His sheer terror makes his forehead pound on the window several times, covering it with blood. Then Wang collapses as he breaks down. While the baby is given the mark of Ishii's daughters, Imamura floats in one of the lab capsules. She has the mark too and remembers enjoying the way Suxia sang to the girl in her cell. Sometime later, the compound starts building bombs filled with infested fleas. To test it, they take the prisoners to the middle of a field and tie them to crosses around a pit. A few Japanese soldiers sit among them and are given the vaccine. Then a balloon appears above them and opens fire. Refusing to give up, Wang struggles with the rope until he manages to free himself. As the bombs release the fleas, Wang quickly frees Sun and together they run around to release the others. When the vaccinated men realize what's happening, they immediately try to stop the prisoners and a vicious battle ensues. The prisoners clearly have the upper hand thanks to their numbers, but unfortunately more Japanese soldiers arrive and open fire as they form a circle around the pit. Any prisoner trying to run is now forced to step back. Some of them try to fight these soldiers too, only to meet their lethal flamethrowers. Some victims are pushed into the pit while others catch on fire. It's an absolute massacre, and the Japanese higher-ups just watch from their tent as if it was a normal show. In the evening, all the bodies are thrown into the pit with ash to bury them. Sun soon wakes up and finds Wang, who hugs him to protect him from the ash. Then Wang puts Sun on his shoulders and they start climbing the pit, however Sun slips and falls on the pile of bodies. At that moment the others also wake up and form a pyramid against the wall. Wang and Sun climb on them while hearing them proudly yell their names. The duo eventually reaches the top where a soldier is waiting. Sun grabs the man's leg and pulls himself up, causing the soldier to fall into the pit. As soon as Sun is finally out, another soldier shoots him, and Sun makes him trip so they both fall. At the same time Wang reaches the top and grabs Sun's hand, but the soldier is also pulling the boy's legs. Wang doesn't have enough strength to save Sun, who lets go of their hands and causes the pyramid to collapse. All the bodies fall back into the pit and Wang can only watch, feeling helpless. When he tries to run away, a soldier shoots him too, leaving no survivors. Eventually Japan loses the war and the compound is bombed under Ishii's orders to keep all the experiments secret. Ishii escapes on a plane with his daughters, Suxian's baby, and all the documentation. Once he arrives at his hometown, he organizes a fake funeral for himself to evade trial. Later the USA grants Ishii and his men immunity in exchange for all the data from the experiments, so Unit 731 is never punished. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching.